Well, here we are. I think this might be the final installment here. It's Wednesday, June 29th, 2022, and I'm Larissa. And I think this might be the last installment of Luck of the Draw, an original work of fiction completed in the autumn of 2020 by me. Chapter 13. I'm sorry, I love you. Jack pushed his feet into his shoes by the door, then walked back over to Stephanie, sitting at the dining room table where she was eating a bowl of cereal. He kissed her on the top of her head. I'm sorry. I want to get in early before Jeff shows up and get the place ready for today's delivery, Jack lied. Are you sure you can't just take the day off and rest a bit? Stephanie asked. Jack had been released late Thursday evening. Doug's right arm was paralyzed and his lung was punctured, but he was going to make it and live a mostly normal life. Jack was not going to be charged. Footage from the camera behind the counter confirmed his story of self-defense, and neither man was interested in pressing charges against the other. In fact, once he had woken up and stabilized, Doug told the police everything that had happened with Mike Musgraves and Oleg and was willing to testify against them. The only catch was Doug might be forced into witness protection, but that was yet to be seen. Eberly had gone to the hospital and been by Doug's side and was still there as far as Stephanie knew. She wanted Jack to just take it easy for a day or two. They had all been through a lot lately, but he insisted on going into the shop, even though Jeff and Dana, the undergrad Jack had recently hired for weekends, were more than able to run the shop for a couple of days. I want to make sure there's no blood on the floor, and there's a big delivery coming in today, and I want the back room cleared this time, Jack lied again. The shipment coming in today was no bigger than any other shipment. He just wanted some time in the shop by himself to think. Okay, well, call me when you're on your way home. I want to have dinner ready and waiting for you. Stephanie smiled sadly at her husband, who was walking out the front door. Okay, Jack said over his shoulder. I love you, honey bear, Stephanie cried. I love you too, Jack said without turning around. Once in the shop, Jack looked around. Jeff had done a good job cleaning up. Jack knew he would. Jeff was a good employee and an even better person. He'd cleaned up and filled in for Jack without even asking questions or complaining. Jack closed the door behind him, but didn't bother to lock the door. He walked into the back room workshop area and surveyed the collection of vases on the wall. A beautiful blue glass mosaic barrel-shaped vase stuck out to him. He plucked it from the wall and set it in the middle of the workstation. Then he fit a piece of soaked floral foam into the bottom before turning toward the cooler. Inside the cooler, he pulled 12 of the most beautiful and expensive long-stem roses and giant pom-pom spider mums from buckets and carried them gently in his arms back into the workshop. He carefully wrapped the stems of each mum with fine floral wire, then expertly arranged the roses and mums in the floral foam in the base of the vase. He finished the arrangement with a modest spray of baby's breath and a couple sprigs of greenery before choosing a card with a shiny red heart on the front. On the back of the card he wrote, "To my Stephanie, I'm sorry I love you, Jack." Then he sealed the card in an envelope, clearly wrote Stephanie's name on it, placed it in a plastic card holder near the front of the arrangement, and tucked the arrangement on a table in the center of the walk-in flower cooler. Then he walked around the shop, giving everything a once-over one last time. Then he walked into the front of the shop and found his gun where he had left it in the cubbyhole and sat it on the counter. Back at Married Student Housing, the phone was ringing. Stephanie answered it. "Oh, hi, Uncle Eb. Hi, Steph. Is Jack there?" "No, Uncle Eb. He went in to work early. He said something about clearing out the back for a big delivery today." "Something about that doesn't sound right, Steph. I agree, Uncle Eb, but I don't want to push it with Jack right now. He's had such a horrible couple months, and we've both been under a lot of stress with the house in escrow and my final panel coming up and his dad and everything with that, and now the Doug stuff. How is Doug, anyway?" Steph, you are a true angel. I can't believe you're even asking after Doug after everything." Doug's been a real asshole, Jack. Doug's been a real asshole to Jack, Uncle Eb, but he didn't deserve what that Musgraves guy did to him either. I can't even imagine. He must have been terrified. For all of us. He is, Steph. He is. And to be honest, I'm pretty scared too. I just wanted to talk to Jack and let him know how sorry Doug and I both are. Well, you're going to have to catch him on his cell because he's not here. I'm sure he's at the shop by now, but he won't answer the phone until after 9. Oh, well, I think I might just walk over there. I'm just around the corner at a coffee shop right now. I have a meeting with an expert at the university in an hour. After my meeting, you want to get some lunch with me? Sure, Uncle Eb. I'm just working on editing today. Just ring me when you're on your way over. It's a plan. See you later, Steph. Love you. Love you too, Uncle Eb. Stephanie hung up the phone, feeling better about everything. Maybe things were going to start going back to normal now. Uncle Eb would go talk to Jack and work his Eberly magic, and they would all go back to having brunch and drinking good wine and talking about art. Eberly hung up the phone feeling ominous. Something wasn't right with Jack, and he was going to get to the bottom of things so his niece could focus on finishing her paper and preparing the catalog he'd been helping her compile of the Gettleman family art and antique collection that was going on exhibit the coming spring at City Hall back in Tuscaloosa, where Great Grammy and Pop Pop were buried. Eberly tossed his empty paper cup in the trash and smiled at the barista as he walked out towards Jack's shop around the corner. It was just after 8 Friday morning, and the Palo Alto streets were just starting to really show signs of life. As Eberly turned the corner, he saw the lights were on in Jack's shop. With a skip in his step, he quickened his pace to the door. As he clasped the handle of the door, he saw in horror Jack standing behind the counter, holding a pistol to the side of his head. Eberly desperately pulled at the door, expecting it to be locked, but it wasn't, and swung into his chest, causing him to stumble as he pressed forward into the shop. Jack, no! He screamed with hands outstretched toward Jack. Jack opened his eyes in shock at being caught by Eberly. He calmly turned the gun away from himself and at Eberly, who kept running towards Jack in horror. Jack pulled the trigger, hitting Eberly squarely in the forehead. Eberly fell dead to the ground, in the same place Doug had laid bleeding just a couple days before. Not even looking to see if Eberly were still breathing, Jack turned the gun on himself, wrapping his mouth around the barrel, and pulled the trigger, slumping to the ground. By the time Jeff and Dana arrived an hour later, both had stopped bleeding. No one knew it yet, but Stephanie was about to come into a sizable chunk of money. On Tuesday, Eberly had updated his $10 million life insurance policy, changing the beneficiary from Doug to Stephanie. She was going to be able to pay for her new house outright and still have enough left to pay for the funerals and her student loans. The end. Epilogue. Mike stood across from Oleg at the pool table in Oleg's basement with his phone to his ear. Yeah, I get it, Steve. I'm not sure you do. This guy's willing to testify. I can take care of that, you know. I don't want to know, and no, you can't take care of this one, Mikey, and neither can I. There's just too many strings, and I'm all out of favors right now. You and your buddy need to just stay low for a while. How long's a while? Like a long while, like a year or more. A year or more? Steve, I might as well go back east. You said it, not me. Come on, man, you can't be serious. Totally serious. Get the fuck out and stay out for a while, and don't bother calling me again for the next 5 years. And you better not go home either. They have Mom under close watch. Now I'm going to hang up. Just talking to you could cost me my ass. 5 years, man. 5 years at least. Got it? Yeah. 5 years and stay away from home. Steve had already hung up before Mike had even finished the sentence. Oleg watched Mike expectantly. So? He asked Mike. So what? You heard what I said. We've been advised to move. Things are hotter than we thought. What do you mean? I mean, that faggot went and got himself shot, and now he's ready to testify against us, and evidently they got DNA evidence at one of the girls' places, and Steve said he's not willing to go to jail for me. We could just have someone take care of that Doug guy. No, we can't. It would just keep us here longer and be one more to add to the list. You do what you want, but I'm going home and grabbing my go bag. Okay, where are we going then? Detroit. I got an old friend I hear is out there now. Cool. Forgotten that the last chapter in the epilogue on this one was so short. I also forgot that Eberly died. Oh my God. I didn't even see that coming. And I wrote it. Seriously. So in writing these novels, I still have one more that I'm going to read. In writing these novels are total, pure fiction. They're pure fiction. None of these characters are based on real people. None of them are. And the stories are informed by experiences that I've had or people that I have known, but none of this is biographical or autobiographical in any way, shape, or form. It is truly pure fiction. And it's hard because, like, sometimes when I don't know, when people read works by people that they know, they're looking for themselves in things. And I knew another person who was an author. He self-published a book after having a pretty tumultuous experience. And the book, he told me that, he said the book is fiction. It's total fiction. But he said people were really upset when he wrote it. And I'm not sure, like, why that is. Like, there's no, at least in my case, I don't know. I never read his book, and I also didn't know the people in his life that that he had the difficult situation with. So, like, I can't really judge about that because I didn't know. But with my books, yes, they're informed by experience, but they're not about real life events, right? And, like, in the book, was not this one that I just finished reading, the one before, Patent Leather Jean. So, like, I was writing that during the time of the pandemic, and you know the story is that there's these vials of designer virus inside of those little statues or whatever, but it's left ambiguous. You never really know what it is that's inside of those vials, right? Because they also say that the vials, that they have lead in them, and there would be no reason for lead unless something was radioactive. And so that's something else altogether. And so, I did that very consciously because I did not want to give the impression that I was saying that I knew where this virus came from, or that I was accusing somebody of any one person or persons of doing this. But the other stuff, was all based on, the information and things, the way, the mannerisms of people were based on real experiences I've had in doing advocacy work for anti-human trafficking campaigns here in California, and working one-on-one with trafficked youth. And here again, none of these stories, like, I never knew a girl trafficked from North Korea. No, I never worked with anyone like that. But it's a plausible story in today's environment. Um, and I think that that's what's hard for people, right? People's ego gets in the way of things, and they want to say, oh, that's me, it's mine, or it's just something to complain about. But there's none of that here. There's none of that here because it's pure fiction. And I was influenced or inspired to start writing some fiction, because here we were, locked up in our houses. Here I was, locked up and alone here, Omar and I, on this property, by ourselves with our animals, with no family or friends, right? No family or friends. And I was looking for a productive way to spend my time. And writing was a way of processing what was going on, as well as, keeping myself from going nuts, right? I could have spent the entire time being drunk or stoned. And I'm not saying that we didn't drink, or that we didn't smoke any weed, because we did, but not morning to night, not every waking moment, right? And I tried talking to people about, self-publishing and printing, having copies actually printed, and it was just more trouble than it was worth, and way too expensive. And I really wanted to share my works, right? Not have them all co-opted. Like the last novel that I have yet to read, It's called Passion's Torrent. It's actually the first novel that I wrote, and I was hoping to have some help in editing while I was working on that. And I had originally asked my mother, and because my mom's a good editor, and she's really good at spelling and stuff, but she was really weird about it and wasn't interested or whatever. And I had emailed her the first two chapters maybe it was, and after that, I'm not saying that my mother sold them. I'm saying somebody was hacked into my stuff. That there's a scene in the book in where you meet this bar owner, right? What's his name? Toothless Gill. You meet Toothless Gill, and the way he's dressed and everything, and he's an ex prize fighter, right? That's where he lost all his teeth is in is boxing, bare knuckle boxing. And I don't know, it was like 2 weeks after that, there was some cheap whiskey commercial with Conor McGregor in it. And I'm like, huh, that's like the scene from my book. So who in the industry is hacked into my stuff, right? Or did somebody sell it? And if somebody sold it, who was it and how much did they get? Because I think I deserve a cut, right? That's big business, writing for advertising or writing for network media, right? I didn't get paid anything. And there's been other stuff like that in music that I've written or other stuff that I've written or whatever. And it's just like, okay, I know a lot of people who work in industry, or I have known a lot of people who work in industry, including Disney. And I've never signed a contract with Disney, right? I've never signed a contract with America's Got Talent, right? I've never signed a contract with the Country Music Association or any other director or anything like that. I did some extra work when we were living in Oakland with SF Casting, and that was a clown show. I would never ever recommend anybody use SF Casting. They sent me on so many crappy student shoots, and there was one in particular I was really, really disgusted. It was a community college student named Savannah, and it was a short. It was a 10-minute short, and I had read the script, and the script was about a woman who rents an apartment from a guy to shoot lesbian porn, right? And the story was the story was about this guy discovering that that's what this woman's doing, that she's not living in the apartment, that she's shooting lesbian porn. And there was nothing inherently like wrong with it, right? But they asked me if I wanted to play a part where there was simulated sex, and I said no, because it was volunteer, and that wasn't fun, right? If it had been a larger production and I was being paid, right, to play a character, that's a totally different thing. But no, I wasn't going to go do a student film and do something that was against my nature for somebody else's shits and giggles. And they said, okay, that's fine. And so they just had me come in as an extra, which was fine to me. I'm like, whatever. And there was somebody there, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was a professional, right? And he was assigned to this girl, Savannah, as her mentor, right? As her professional mentor. And during the shooting, he and I were talking, and there were a bunch of things that I was really uncomfortable with on set, and I had asked him about it. And the straw that broke the camel's back for me was on the final day of shooting that I was there was a young woman, and it wasn't clear to me that she was over 18, right? Who they coerced. They said, come on, take one for the team, into doing the role that I didn't want to do, right? There was some weirdness where, like, you were wearing these insect costumes, and the one girl goes down on the other girl, and it was like, I'm just like, no, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in doing that. And there was nothing that was, full-on frontal or anything like that, but still, this young woman was obviously very uncomfortable. And when we left that day, I emailed the guy and I said, I don't want to come back and work on this set. And I said that was really unprofessional, and I hope that young woman was of age. I said she did not want to do that. It was coercion, and it just made me feel gross, right? And SF Casting is also how I got connected with Launch Showcase, which was also disgusting. Don't ever pay money to participate in Launch Showcase. It is nothing but a scam. It is nothing but a scam. So, yeah, I mean, the both the music and the entertainment industry in general is really shady. It's really shady. I did a lot of improv work as well, and I don't recommend that either. I don't recommend doing improv work at small theaters, because you get a lot of people who are just, it's really weird. You get a lot of people in those groups who just want to simulate sexual acts, like in practice and stuff. And I got tired of working with groups of juvenile men or boys who wanted to simulate humping each other's legs and shit on stage, because it was like, oh, it's like, if you want to talk about a real story, which is part of that, this is also part of why I felt compelled to write stories that were inclusive of LGBTQ community, because the stuff that I encountered when I was doing improv theater was really disrespectful and really petty and really without any kind of artistic merit in a lot of cases. And there's only maybe a handful of people that I worked with ever who I would ever consider working with again. And one of them is dead. So Parker Gillespie, peace and love to your family. And Gil Brenham, I'd work with Gil Brenham again. And I'd work with Paul Cook again. Who else? Oh, what was her name? Kathleen Dwyer. Last I had heard, she was very ill. I hope she recovered and is doing well. Definitely would work with Kathleen Dwyer again. And there was a woman, Midori. I can't remember. I don't know what Midori's last name was. An older woman. I'd work with her again. That's probably about it. I don't think there's anybody else I'd work with again out of any of those groups. It was really disappointing. Really disappointing. I really feel like my books and the vignettes of men that I wrote would make excellent film. And if anybody were interested in doing that, I'm totally open to it. But I would never, ever work with Disney. Not in any way, shape, or form. I'm not interested in working with Disney. And I'm not interested in working with anyone from Industrial Light Magic after my experience with that guy Mike and that band that I was in for a short period of time. I think I'd want to work with somebody independent. There was a time in my life where I would have considered working with Jerry White, but not anymore. Not anymore. Certainly not. Certainly not. I don't know. I don't even know. I don't even know who I could say, oh, I'd love to work with so-and-so. I don't know. Maybe Mr. Eastwood. Maybe. But even that, maybe not. Maybe Mr. Tarantino. Although I'm not sure there's enough gore in my stories for him. He kind of likes gory things, doesn't he? Not that either of those people would ever be interested in working with me. But I do think my stories would make excellent film. Hmm. Hmm. I'd want to be involved. I would. I'd want to be involved. I'd want to be involved in casting, and I'd want to have some say in directing. Mm-hmm. Anyway. Anyway. Hope you enjoyed the book. There's one more to go.